Overtourism, and why it's important to travel sustainably. As the travel and tourism industry expand, so will its effect on the environment. The tourism industry is already expanding from its 25 million arrivals in 1950 to its expected 1.8 billion arrivals by 2030. Many negative impacts from this increase in travel are already being shown. 70% of marine animals are already threatened. More than 80% of coral reefs are at risk, and 90% of coral reefs are expected to die by 2050. Many of these negative impacts can be contributed to by the tourists staying in these locations. A large contributor to overtourism is social media. Social media tends to drive tourists to specific locations in order to capture pictures, which can cause overtourism in these areas, which disturbs the locals as well as the surrounding environment. An Instagram account by the name of Insdirect shows before and after images of what Instagram has done to these locations. Here are some examples from their posts. And then there's Buxton, which shows the before and afters of tourism and how tourists just leave their trash in these locations that they visit. Garbage left by tourists seems to be a reoccurring theme in these over-tourized places, such as the Mayan River, which has tens of thousands of people visiting it every day, but still doesn't have a proper source of recycling. This issue could have relatively simple solutions. However, what about the issues that have harder solutions, and what does traveling sustainably actually mean?
Sustainable tourism has many metrics. The United Nations has 7 different pillars. The core metric is the environment, specifically addressing climate change. The second one is addressing cultural needs and poverty alleviation. And the third one is addressing the preservation of biodiversity. So when it comes to wildlife, when it comes to nature, the Amazon jungle, for example, different elements where you're trying to preserve different natural elements of the earth. It's important just because of the fact that these are all finite resources. There is consistent proof every single day about the warming waters and what it means for temperature control, what it means for, where I live in Florida. Hurricanes getting larger and more powerful every single year. It used to be the hurricanes would come across certain towns. Now we have hurricanes that are 600 miles wide that cover the entire state. You can't go anywhere. You just have to simply stay at home and just weather it because of warming temperatures. You've got places in the world, the remote islands that are sinking because of rising waters. Then you've also got a decline in populations because of a loss of natural habitat, whether it be deforestation or anything like that, that comes into it.
These are just a few of many everyday impacts by human activities such as non-sustainable tourism. Many places realize these negative impacts and are trying to find ways to move more sustainable. Berlin has restricted suitcases with wheels in certain areas so it does not disturb the locals. Venice is no longer allowing cruise ships to pass through the canal. Croatia, Bruges, and Santorini have a restriction on how many passengers are allowed off cruise ships on a certain day, and Boracay closed down its island for 6 months to clean up the mess from the tourists. These are past solutions, but what's going on currently?
I'll give you an example. The picture you see behind me, this is an organization called Ecofiltro. This is a place that we work with in Guatemala where we can take guests to go learn how to make artisanal pots, out of clay, how the locals make these pots. These are dating back to Mayan civilization, how they make these pots. Those pots are then turned into reverse osmosis water filters. They take the pots, it's a carbon center in the middle. They then take a silver collodium. So a silver collodium is what's used in Brita water filters and most other water filters that you plug into your faucet or you pour water out of. Your water passes through a collodium. It catches carbon deposits. It catches any kind of heavy mineral deposits. So the water you get out is completely clear. Now, this particular organization, who our foundation partners up with, is taking that same clay filter and turning it into a reverse osmosis filter by turning the bottom of the clay pot into an osmosis filter where the water permeates through. A typical water filter that you get that is made out of plastic, a lot of waste plastic to make that little piece. This particular pot eliminates all that waste. That plastic filter you get from a water filter will last you 30 days. The clay pot you see behind me, once it's actually ready to use, will last 2 years. And each clay pot provides clean water for 2 years for up to 24 kids in school. We're right now working to get these clay pots deployed to different schools around Guatemala because the lack of clean drinking water is the leading cause of death among kids and women in Guatemala. So this addresses that. So one clay pot provides clean water for 24 kids for 2 years. And then once it's done, because of all the minerals being captured at the bottom of this pot, it becomes the best form of farming because it turns into an organic farming pot. So the pot never ceases being used. And I actually was in Guatemala in January and visited some of the homes and how they're using them. Everything you're growing in these pots grows bigger. It's healthier. It's fully organic. So imagine literally taking hydroponics, organic farming, and clean water and marrying them into one project. That's what this does.
These water filtration pots that double as vegetable planting pots once they are done with their filtration are extremely helpful. The process of making these pots can be shared with guests touring these locations. Doing this can help further educate the public on being eco-friendly as well as traveling sustainably. The UN made 2017 the year of sustainable tourism.
Before that point, there was a floating definition of sustainability. What the UN did was actually compartmentalize all the different elements of sustainability. We actually put together 3 websites. We took those UN pillars within the specific regions, and we then applied those pillars to every country in that region and started developing a ranking system based on what was already being done.
For example, the eco-filtro pots mentioned previously could be filed under poverty alleviation as well as climate action, as there is not any use of burning plastics in the making of these pots.
But you can also address cultural preservation. Because of the lack of clean drinking water, what you're able to do is take these pots and deploy them into indigenous communities in their community versus having them move to bigger cities just to get access to different water. So they're not having to choose between abandoning their heritage or their native home to go find a source of water in a large city where they're going to get exploited.
These are some big company examples of sustainable tourism. But what are things that you can do? Try and prevent geotagging specific locations, as geotagging very specific locations can draw people to one spot. Instead, try being more vague with your geotagging by tagging the entire city instead of the one specific place. This is especially important if you have a bigger platform. Buy from local stores, as it's a way of giving back to the community, and it gives them benefits from the tourism. Never buy wildlife products, such as seashells, trinkets made out of ivory, rare animal fur, or anything like that, as you could be supporting the trafficking and exploitation of rare and endangered species, without even knowing it. Choose an eco-friendly hotel to stay in, and bring a reusable water bottle to eliminate single-use plastic waste. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, these over-tourized places have started to recover due to the lack of travel. The travel and tourism industry is now in the place for a conscious comeback to provide a more sustainable future.